Okay, so the next part we're going to do is we're going to be using this beautiful K1 Jap, and we're going to be coming down and up on our crown and doing corners. Okay, so we're going to show you how to do that. So I'm going to be using this thread, which is a nice complementary blue thread, against the gold, so that it really shows up and it's very, very regal. Okay, so the first thing we need to do is we need to plunge our ends. So we're actually going to be plunging them just here. Okay, and we're going to do one and then we're going to do a second one. So I'm going to do it right on the point there. So I'm just going to take that needle down, and then I'm just going to take it down again with thread in. Okay, so we'll just poke that through there like that and take that down to the back. Okay, you need to make sure you secure that off, and I'll be doing that in a bit. Okay, so we need to put the next one down, which we're just going to put down just on the very end of that. It's actually breaking that fabric, but that doesn't matter. Okay, so we'll just find the other end and then we can plunge that down. Okay, so we've got one down, poke that down through that hole, and then take the second one down and over sew them. Now normally I would over sew them straight away, but obviously for demonstration purposes it's much quicker if I actually stitch them down later. Now with this thread, I'm not actually going to put that through the wax. You always wax your couching threads, but because it's a stranded cotton, I never wax the stranded cotton. So we're starting off with our stitches just here. Okay, and this is with the nice blue thread that we've got. I'm just going to come up slightly to the side of that material. Okay, and I'm pushing the material up as well. Try to make sure that your stitches are at a right angle to your, so where your thread is vertical, your stitches need to be parallel. Okay, need to be horizontal. So we're just going to come up there, and we're doing slightly smaller stitches, okay, so that you can actually see that blue. And I'm just pulling that material up slightly so that it forms a nice tight area here. Can you see how nicely tight that is there now? Because I've just lifted it up slightly. I'm just going to do that a few more times as I take the needle down. Now it's really good if you actually hold that in place. You can pin it in place, but you need to make sure that you would pin it much further down so that you don't see those marks. So we're just going to come up, and then we're going over, and try and make sure that they're all straight stitches. Okay. Okay, so we're just going to hold that, and we're stitching down, lifting that up, taking that down. Okay, and then you'll just carry on all the way down to your point. Now my stitches are slightly closer together than usual. I would usually do them slightly further apart, but I want the blue to show so that it has a really nice effect. Now make sure that your thread is going nicely down to this line, which is why I'm holding it still so that it doesn't get all wobbly. Okay, so we're just going to carry on stitching down there like that. Okay, and those stitches are about 2 to 3 mil apart. Okay, so somewhere between that. You could do them slightly closer together if you wanted to, and obviously then you'd get more of an effect over that gold, or you could do them slightly further apart if you wanted it to grow much quicker. So I'm just doing them at a really nice distance, and try and make sure that they are fairly regular stitches as well. So if you're going wider and then shorter, then you know that will be fairly noticeable. So try and get the the distances as equal as possible. It won't always be possible to get them perfectly equal, but as much as possible. Okay, and also try and make sure that they're as horizontal to your parallel as possible. If they are angular, it will be far more noticeable, so it's quite important to make sure these stitches are quite well stitched. Okay, I mean, obviously when it's all completed, you won't really notice the odd stitch that's may have gone a little bit AWOL, and it depends on how much of a perfectionist you are as to whether you wanted that to be completely perfect or you're quite happy that a few of them are off. Okay, when you're doing a project such as this, it's a little bit difficult to be a perfectionist because you can't quite get as close to the work as you normally would. Okay, so as we're now getting down to this V here, I'll show you what you need to do just as you get to that area. So I'm just going to put one just a little bit closer than I have been doing. Okay, so I'll just put that one just there like that. And then what I'm going to do is I'm going to put one just here in that V there. Okay, and I'm going to put that over just one of the threads. Okay. Just get rid of a little bit of fluff there. And then I'm going to put another stitch just that little bit further down there. Okay. Try and get your stitch at that sort of angle to the point. Okay. Now it won't look like it is, but it actually is. And then when you're doing this next stitch, you're going to bring those threads around. Just going to take a little bit more off that reel there, and I'm just going to bring those up to there, and then make sure my stitch is at the right angle. Okay, and then I'm going to hold those down there, and that will pull those in nice and tightly. Okay, don't worry if they've overlapped slightly, you just need to make sure that they do go in the right direction. Okay, these are slightly twisted, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to untwist those at the front. Okay, so we need to take that one that way, and then we need to take that one underneath that way, and then this is actually in the right place here, so that needs to go back that way, and we need to pull that just slightly in like that and give it a little bit of a tweak to make that a nice point. And then we're also going to just give that a little bit of a tweak like that as well. Hold those down and give that a tug, that thread a tug at the back. Okay, so that makes a nice little V there. So then you'll just carry on your stitches all the way back up to that point, and you'll do the point at the top in the same way but slightly farther spaced here. Okay, so I'll demonstrate that when I get to the top, and then you know how to do all of your V's. Okay, so again, by the same token, I'm just going to hold that so that it's in a nice line, and then you get a really good line, then you don't go off at funny angles. Okay, I'm just going to move that thread slightly out of my way so that it doesn't catch in everything. So again, we're just going to come up and down like that, and again try and make sure those stitches are reasonably close together. That last one was just fractionally further apart than I would like, so I need to make sure I'm bringing those closer in now. Okay, and we're catching in the very edge of that sheer fabric every time. Okay, so we're just coming up, and when I've brought this needle up, I'll just show you. So the thread is just coming up here, and I'm catching it in. You can just see here, catching that thread in, and that material, the sheer fabric material, every time, and that sandwiches that perfectly in place against your backing material, your silk dupial material, and your thread. and it means that it's not going to lift or go anywhere. And that's another good reason why it's great if you've got one of those soldering irons to solder the edges, because it actually seals those edges and it makes them less likely to fray as well. So you can see the edges of the sheer fabric that we've laid down, they're all nicely sealed, whereas if you just cut them, they do tend to fray a lot more easily. Okay, so we're just coming up there and down, and we're getting really close to that top now. So when we get to that edge, I will show you how to do that point and make it a nice strong point. It is harder to do it with the K Jap than it is with the T Jap. I always find points much easier if you're using the T Jap, but the K Jap just looks so glamorous and bright and jazzy, much more like real new gold as opposed to gold when it's dulled down a bit. This is like freshly molten gold, which obviously all of the Coronation wear will be using real gold. So we do have some special real, like 2% etc, and real gold Jap if you wanted to get that as well. So that's entirely up to you. Okay, so we're just getting to that point now. Okay, so again, I'm going to put one little point just here, okay, on that very top of that apex. So we're coming over. Make sure again, this is at a straight angle, so you're sort of going at that angle. Again, it won't fall at that angle initially. You can see it looks like it's at a very much at this angle, which actually the stitches aren't. And then we're going to go slightly higher this time, okay, coming up here, and again, so my stitch is there, so I'm going to go down right there, which is at a, you know, very much at that angle, but again it looks like it's more at this angle, but that's fine. Okay, it will come right when you go back down. So then we're going to come up on this side, so we're opposite this stitch here. Okay, and this is exactly what we've done on the other side, however we did it slightly lower here, and we're doing it slightly farther apart up here. Okay, so again I'm going to bring these threads around. Okay, so I'm bringing them around, and this needle needs to come this side, and it's going to go over those two threads, okay, like that. Right, so I'm just pulling them down a little bit, and I'm pulling that in, okay. So I'm just going to bring my needle up here, and then it'll keep that a little bit more taut just there, okay. And then I'll just tweak that together, and that one's a little bit longer than I would like, so I'm just going to move that in, okay, and then I'm going to pull that tight again, okay. So I'm just going to put that next stitch over here like that, okay. And then this can just be, I mean, if you've got a pair of tweezers, or you can just do it with your nail, and you can just tweak that and make it into a really nice point. So that's a really good sharp point now. Now what you've got to be careful of is when you pull this thread now, I'm just going to move this out of the way a little bit. I'm going to come up here first, but what you don't want to do is pull this too tight, because then it will affect this end here. Okay, so I'm just going to put that next stitch there, okay, and then once I've got that one in and the needle back up, I'm just going to then tighten that to where I want it to be. So I've got a few stitches on there. I'm just going to take these ends now, and I'm just going to hold those down just there in place. Maybe just pull that one slightly tighter, because it's just got a little bit of a kink on it there. And then we're just going to carry on stitching down here, Do the same here as we did here, okay, on this corner here, and then the same here, but this is slightly tighter, so it'll go slightly tighter than that, and then we're just going to come down and around, okay. So we'll just carry on with that stitching now. so we just need to finish it off now, and I'm just going to trim these threads to about 1 inch, and then I'm going to just plunge those ends down through the fabric. So in a similar way to where we came up, I'm just going to plunge them right next to each one of those ones that went down. Okay, so I'm just going to take that through just there like that, and take it down to the fabric and then tuck it through. Okay, and then we're going to take the next one down just there, right near that one, poke it through the eye of the needle, and then take it down and pull it the rest of the way through. Okay, and then you get a nice little V just there, which is perfect. Okay, so the last little bit that we need to do with the K-Jap is to just put a line here. So we're just going to plunge both of these strands together, and we're going to put it down just here, poke that through the eye of the needle like that, and then take that down to the back. Okay, so make sure that you over sew that on the back. Okay, so then all you're going to do is then just stitch this down in a straight line. Okay, so I'm just going to start here, and again we're doing relatively small stitches to mirror what we've done just here. Okay, so I'm just going to do a couple of stitches, and then you can see how that's forming, and then complete the rest of it. Okay, so just small stitches, that's what we're doing, just to mirror the bottom, because they were smaller stitches because they were going into the leather area. So once you've started to get your couple of stitches, you need to try and keep this distance the same, and remember that this is a slight curve, so you're going to start off with your thread going at a funny angle, but then as time goes on it'll come back down, because see, if I do it as a straight line, it's hitting this much closer. So you need to start it off higher, and then you'll go much closer. Okay, so let's just do those first few stitches, and then you'll see me moving the K-Jap thread as we move along. So try and keep this gap just here the same, so the gap that we're doing here, try and keep this the same width all the way along. Okay, So we're just coming to the end here now. Okay, and you can see that this is slightly down turning here. So I'm just going to do another couple of stitches. I'm moving this thread down slightly to meet that curve. Okay, and then what we're going to do is we're just going to put a couple of stitches more. But before we do that, we need to make sure that we plunge that down at this side. Okay, so we're going to just chop this off and then plunge. Okay, so we're just going in a little bit closer so you can see it a bit easier. Just going to chop that off there, and we're going to take both of those threads down about there. Okay, so I need to take them and put them both through the eye of the needle there, like that. Take it down to the fabric and then ease them through. Now sometimes if you're plunging them both together they will twist, so you just need to untwist them at the back and then they lie really nice and flat. So just need to put 2 more little stitches in there now. Okay, so there's 1 and there's 2. Not forgetting to oversew your thread at the back. Okay, so there's our stitches now, and we can just give that a little bit of a push back into there. Okay, so that's our Jap thread there, and you can see it goes nicely all the way around here and all the way into our little V's and apexes, and then we've got the last little bit going there.